Hi everybody, this is Mary Annarella of Lyrical Knits, and I'm here with a tutorial for you to show you how to do the fir tree stitch pattern for my new hat pattern. I would tell you the name of the new hat pattern, but I haven't named it yet, so I cannot tell you, but I will link it below in the description. But anyhow, what we're going to be working on is how to do this stitch motif right here. It's made up of basically 6 different cables. One on the first patterning row, you're going to have one right leaning cable that's over 4 stitches and one left leaning cable that is over 4 stitches. On the next patterning row, so that's 2 rounds later, you're going to have a right leaning cable over 3 stitches and a left leaning one over 3 stitches as well. 2 rows later, you're going to have just a single 1/1 twist to the right and a 1/1 twist to the left. So we're going to be starting off with this bottom one. So this is a 1 stitch heading to the right over 3 stitches. So it's a cable that's over 4 stitches. I've worked up to the point where I'm going to do this. And now if we did this with a cable needle, what we would do is take these first 3 stitches here, boom, 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 and put those onto a cable needle, hold them to the back, and knit this 4th stitch. But we're not going to do that. We're going to make life a lot easier on ourselves, and honestly, I think you get a much better looking stitch for this particular stitch pattern if you do it this way. I'm going to show you how to do it right now. So what we're going to do is get your yarn going, and we are going to leave these first 3 stitches right on the left hand needle, and with these 3 stitches still on the needle, we're going to knit into the 4th stitch. So what I'm going to do is, oh, and I knit continentally. If you are a thrower, obviously you'll have your yarn, working yarn in your right hand, but I'm going to take my needle, go right into the front of that 4th stitch and draw up a loop like that. All right, and I am going to pull it a lot. I want that to be nice and loosey-goosey. Now, without removing any of these stitches from the left-hand needle, I'm going to knit this 1st, 2nd, and then 3rd stitch individually. So I'll knit the 1st, pull that one off, knit the 2nd, and you can pull that one off, and knit the 3rd, pull that off. Okay, now it looks like you have another stitch on here, but you already knit into that one. That was that 4th stitch that you drew a nice big loop from right off the bat. Do not be tempted to knit back into that one because it'll give you an extra stitch. So you don't want that. So you just pull the whole thing off like that, and you've got this nice big loop of a yarn, loop of yarn that is cabled right over those 3 stitches. All right, so that's the right leaning one. The left leaning one is one that we're going to do next. Now, if I were using a cable needle, that would be absolutely fine to take that 1 stitch, put it on a cable needle, hold that needle to the front, knit the next 3, and then knit the one off the cable needle. I don't prefer to use a cable needle. I know a lot of people love them. I just tend not to use them. What I do instead is the same exact effect that you would get using with a cable needle. I'm going to take these 3 stitches here. I'm going to go behind them, and I'm going to slip not the 1st, but only those second 3 onto my right hand needle. Oops, come back here. There they are. And then I'm going to pull all 4 off. But, I'm going to put my finger there because look, that first one is all loosey-goosey and free, and we don't want it to drop. All right, but so what? It's not going anywhere right now. You guys can see that right there. I'm going to put that onto the left-hand needle and pull. Pull hard because we want it to, it's going a long way. It's going over 3 whole stitches, so it's really got to stretch a lot. Now I'm going to put these 1, 2, 3 stitches back onto the left-hand needle. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now I'm just going to go ahead and knit all 4 of them. So here we go. 1, the traveling one. There we go. So now we have, you know, 2 cables heading in opposite directions there. Let's knit up to the point where we do it again, and I'll show you guys again. So here we go. Gotta knit 8 stitches here to get to the right spot. Am I at the right spot? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to do a false cable for this right leaning one, where I knit into this 4th stitch. Don't pull anything off while I knit these 3 here that are first. Let's do a close-up of this one. Here we go. I'm going to go right in, and sometimes, here, I'll pull this open for you. There we go. So you can see I just poked my needle through the front of that 4th stitch, and now I'm going to draw my loop of yarn through it, and now I have this nice big loop right there. Keep it big, don't keep it tight like that. You want it to really pull over. All right, and now I'm going to knit these 1, 2, first 3 stitches off the left needle, and you can pull them off as you knit each individual one. 1, 2, and there's the 3rd. And again, see, you've got this loop here, but that's the one that you already knit into, that you drew a loop from right off the bat. So don't knit into this one here. Just pull that right off the needle. Okay, so I really like that one. These next ones, okay, this is how I cable without a cable needle for the left leaning cables, but you can certainly use a cable needle for that. For this one that we just did over here, don't use your cable needle. You get a much better look if you do this fake cable. All right. So let's do this next one without a cable needle. I'm going to put my needle through the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stitches there, not the 1st, and then pull them all off. Don't panic because this one is free, because look, it's not going anywhere. You're just going to take your left-hand needle, and there you go. Now it's safe. It's on the safety of the left-hand needle. Now one by one, I'll put these 3 needles back onto the left-hand needle. And now we just knit all 4 of them individually. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. And there we go. All right. So now I'm just about at the end of this round, and so I'm coming back around to the point where I need to just knit every stitch in this next round. Okay, slip my marker. But I want to show you something. Okay, this is a set of 4 stitches right here that we did that. It's not quite a false cable, but it's kind of a cheat cable, but trust me, it looks a whole lot better. But do you see how this big loop that you drew is kind of flopping all over all of them? All right, it's a little tricky to knit this, or you just have to pay attention. It's not tricky. What I have to do is you have to pull it back over here to where it belongs, because otherwise it's flipping backwards over all of your other stitches, and then you might be tempted to like knit that one. You don't want to do that, right? You want to knit this traveling stitch first. So there you go. Now I've knit that one, and I'll knit the other 3. The left leaning cable, you don't have that issue, okay, because it's just the nature of approaching a left leaning cable when you're working in the round. Okay, but check out how nice that looks there. You really can't tell that these were cabled by 2 different methods. And the reason that I am having you do a cheat cable or a false cable, whatever we want to call it, on the right leaning ones is that you just get a much bigger dash that way. Cables get a little funky when you're working them in the round, so this one especially, because it's a little unique in that it's 1 stitch that's traveling over 3 stitches all the way over here. It's not 2 stitches traveling, it's 3. So it's really got a long way to go, and because it's the one that because it's so far away and it's heading towards you, there is just something about the physics of knitting that when you come back to it in the round, it looks much better if you do this little fake cable. So I really prefer that to doing it with a traditional cable needle, and that's why I'm doing this tutorial for you guys. All right, just let me show you the approach one more time. Just knit right up to the spot where we have to knit the stitches that were cabled or false cabled. There we go. And look, I mean, that it looks like, well, where do I knit this here? Let's look at this close up. I mean, it's flopped all over here, so you really need to pull it back down to where it belongs. There we go. And you want to knit in the front of it or you're going to twist it. So there, I've knit it once. Next one, the next stitch, and the next stitch. All right, now we are ready to go. Oh, you know what? Look, I accidentally knit into that last loop a second time, and that is so not what I want. I've got an extra stitch in there, so I really ought to drop that. But we'll come back to this in just a moment, because now I want to show you the 1/2 stitch right leaning cables. I just showed you the 1/3. Now I want to show you the 1/2. Okay, now that I've knit around, I'm ready to, I've been doing the next set of cables, which is basically on the second patterning row. So I'm just going to knit up to the spot where I'm going to do the 1/2 cable. So it's a 3-stitch cable and it's right crossing. There we go. Pull that off there. So this one stitch needs to travel over here. So what we're going to do, instead of using a cable needle, we are going to knit right into the front of this stitch. So you're holding your yarn in back just like you did previously, and I'm sticking my needle right through the front of this stitch here, and I'm pulling a loop through, nice and big, like that. Right, and it only goes through this one stitch. These 2 stitches have basically been left alone, but basically the yarn, the working yarn, has looped behind it. So that's what sort of makes it a cheat of a cable. With a true cable, this little back loop wouldn't be happening. But wow, you get a much better look here. Now I'm going to knit these next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and I am not going to be tempted to knit back into this because I already did. Oh, and how I had done that last time, I just knit that extra stitch together with a stitch after it, and it was fine. All right, so now these next 2 we're going to do as a traditional cable, but I'm doing it without a cable needle. If you like using a cable needle, that is absolutely fine. What you would do is take this first stitch, put it onto a cable needle, hold it to the front, knit the next 2, then knit this stitch right off the cable needle. But what we're going to do, if you're working this without a cable needle, is to take this right hand needle and insert it into the back of the 2nd and 3rd stitch, skipping over that first one. There, see that? And then you slip all 3 off the needle. Don't freak out because you've got this one that's fancy free right here. You're going to put it right back onto the left hand needle, and it's not going anywhere. Give it a nice tug, because if you tug it, you're going to get a much better looking cable. Don't worry about hurting it. It's fine, and it's going to have to tug to travel over a couple stitches. All right, so now we can just knit all 3 of these stitches right here. 1, 2, 3. There they are. All right. And again, you're going to have the same issue when you come around to knitting those on the next round. So I want to just get to that next. Show you, make sure you know what's going on there. Slip my stitch marker. Here we go. We're just knitting all stitches, but see this cabled stitch, this looped stitch, kind of wants to hang out and flip over the other 2. Don't be tempted to knit that one next. Pull that loop forward, and there you go. Knit it like that. And these other ones that are true cables, typical cables, you don't get that issue, probably because they're left leaning. The ones that are right leaning or right crossing over here, they're the ones that tend to loop back over the other stitches. But take a look at that. That's looking really pretty nice right there. Okay, I've worked around to the point where we are going to do our final set of cables for the little first stitch pattern, and it's just a little 2-stitch cable where one stitch is going to be worked over the next one. This is the one instance that for the right crossing cable, like these two on this side, the right crossing ones, were worked as a fake or faux cable. The 1/1 cable, I'm going to do it like a regular cable. All right, for some reason it just seems to look a lot better down here if you do it that way. They're down below. It's right here, right crossing, and the left crossing one over here. All right, so I'm just going to show you how to do it without a cable needle. If you know how to do it with a cable needle, well then you are all set. But this is one where I'm going to, this one needs to be knit first, and then this one underneath it, so we have to cross them. So I'm going to take this right needle here, and I'm going to actually put it through the second stitch in the front, and then I'm going to pull both off. Now I need to grab this little free loosey-goosey one from behind, put it onto the left hand needle, now take this right one and put it right back onto the left needle. I'll knit this one, and then the second. Yeah, just like that. All right, for this next one, it's going to be a similar deal, except I'm going to take the right hand needle from behind and slip it into the back of only the second stitch on the left needle, and then slip both of those off. I'm using my thumb to kind of secure it, but really it's not going to go anywhere unless you stretch it hard or something. Take that stitch, put it right back on the left needle, and then put this other stitch back onto the left needle and knit them individually. 1 and 2. All right, let's do that again. Let's just knit up to the point where we're going to do those 1/1 cables, a right cross and then a left cross. Oh, enjoying my continental knitting. There we go. It's a little awkward doing this in front of a camera, but that's basically how I knit, and I get a lot of speed. Oops, I went too far. There we go. All right, so these are the stitches that the 2 stitches that we're going to work on a cable. I'm going to take my right hand needle, insert it from the front into the second stitch, and slip them both off. And you know, I'm using my fingers here to just kind of squeeze below so that that stitch can't go anywhere. But there it is, right behind. Oh, there we go. Pull that out of the way so you can see. And now I'll put this stitch back onto the left hand needle. And knit the first one, knit the second one. All done. So there we have that false cable right down here, over 1 stitch traveling over 3 stitches. Here it's 1 stitch traveling over 2 stitches. Here it's 1 stitch traveling over 1 stitch. All right, and likewise on this left hand side, these left crossing ones. So for this one, I'm going to take my needle from behind the stitch and put it through only the second stitch back there, but I'll slip them both off the needle, using my thumb if I'm worried that this one's gonna ladder down. It won't, but unless you pull on it. But just in case, I'm just gonna take. Oh! Wait, I split that stitch there. I just told you that it would be fine, and there it wasn't. It was not fine. There we go. I split it. There we go. Got it. Crisis averted. And now I'll put that second stitch back onto the left needle, knit the first one, and knit the second one. There we go. Alright, now when you knit around, when you come back around to knitting these cabled stitches, and we'll just do that because I set this up so that I would be at the end of the round for you all. Slip your stitch marker. Alright. There's really doesn't seem to be much of an issue, at least from what I can see of of the stitch like looping back over. So really, you're just going to go ahead and knit those babies. right there. And this is just an all knit round, but let me just show you how that looks. Look at all those little fir tree type of cables. It's going to make a fantastic hat, and I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and hope you're enjoying the pattern very much. Have a great day.